Actually, you know what? I will take that last bite.
What?
I will take it. I had one last bite of a grilled cheese offered up, and I said no like an idiot.
Nah. Did you just eat the grilled cheese plain? No soup?
No, no soup. It's not soup season yet.
I can't do grilled cheese without tomato soup.
Yeah. What do you call it? I feel like I just can't do soup until it gets like much colder.
I would eat soup every day if it wasn't for the fact that it like just makes you so fucking hot. So like during the summer, I'm already sweating.
I almost just tweeted out the fucking StreamYard link. Like 500 people trying to join in.
That would have been pretty funny, actually.
I feel like if I had done that, we would have had to just roll with it and like let 500 make like a panel of 500 people joining in. Almost like what do you call? What the fuck do you call that shit? Not spaces. Yeah, spaces. I guess.
Spaces.
Yeah, I didn't want to make sure I wasn't screwing that up. I'm like a dedicated follower of Nadu Spaces. I just realized I didn't even put on our branding. What an idiot I am.
I think they know.
Look at that. Beautiful. I'm going to let a couple more people file in.
What the fuck? Kinjack's gone. It's just me. All right, we're going to talk about...
That was incredible. I was doing that and like on my mouse, I have like these two buttons, which I despise, that are like supposed to be forward, backward on page. And I always accidentally slip and hit them. Oh, what a pain in the ass.
I was about to start talking about Kentucky football.
Today we're talking about the legend.
Which I really know nothing, but...
Today we're talking about the legend of Jared Lorenzen, the Pillsbury throw boy. He was Kentucky, right? I'm not fucking that up.
Yeah.
I feel like we talked about him so much during the big boy.
Yeah, he's a Kentucky legend.
Bracket. Someone I just going on the timeline. There's like 500 people retweeting Dr. Oz posting the same article about the right way to poop.
I have not seen that.
Like he's tweeted the same article like 500 times and they're retweeting every time he did it.
What's the right way to poop? Have I been doing it wrong?
I'm kind of interested now. I mean, all right, Dr. Oz.
It's just gonna be like you need a one of those little stools to put your feet up on.
For optimal expulsion, sit on the toilet with your knees positioned higher than your hips. You can use a footstool to achieve this position.
Just gonna say, use a stool.
Yeah. 52 men and women of these volunteers, 44% strained while pooping, 29%.
I only saved that move for like morning after a Chipotle or a beat up wing night. Like that's the only time I really need to whip that one out.
Yeah. I mean, great point. Maybe we've been doing it wrong this whole time. Like there's just someone just pooping out of their mouth. Like, damn, if only there was a better way. Almost like how, do you remember when we were talking about jerking off that one time on the bracket? Tommy Smokes told us how like he used to jerk off by rubbing his dick like it was a clit, like a dick head.
You'd have to pay me so much money to admit that.
You made it freely. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever heard. There's a few other ways you position. Put your elbows on top of your thighs and lean your upper body forward. This is just too much.
So get it in the fetal position.
Yeah, but like you're sitting up with your knee. Whatever.
How do you think he figured that out? Do you think he just had like a really good poop one day? He's just like, everyone should shit like this.
The weird thing is in the article, it's not even written by him. He's just promoted it 500,000 times. I guess it's someone that works for him. I mean, you got to at least test out your staff's pooping techniques before you bump it out there. All right, I guess we can get into it. All right, welcome to the Long Take. We're on episode 9. Today, we are going to be talking a lot about Lord of the Rings. And then we're going to do a draft of Lord of the Rings plus Game of Thrones characters. We figured we could do just one and make it a shorter draft, but I like a longer one where we can kind of get into both because obviously House of the Dragon is airing alongside this and like two great fantasy series. Well, we'll see. But two should be great fantasy series airing at the same time. Why not just include them both in this draft? Before we do that, we do have news. A little bit of Brendan Fraser stuff, like nothing crazy. I don't even remember what the quote was. It was just like, was it Aronofsky saying he had like the best performance of his career, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Aronofsky said
there's a lot of good quotes in there.
Yeah, Aronofsky said that Brendan Fraser's performance in his new movie The Whale is the best he's ever done, and like other people are kind of saying that too. I think that I've seen it. And Fraser had said, "This may be the first and last time that I ever do this again, so I gave it everything I got," which just makes me even more pumped up to see our big boy, our big boy in that partial prosthetics.
Did you see how much he was wearing on set? What they said?
No,
he was wearing 300 pounds some days on set.
Jesus Christ.
That's actually insanity. Like he just did. I hope everyone goes out and sees it. Like I hope it's not just like one of those things like where Morbius was like an online internet meme and no one actually saw the movie. I hope people's love for Brendan Fraser isn't just like internet like chatter. Like I really hope people go out and see this movie.
Well, I feel like when he does make movies, it's never like poisoned with irony when people like are praising him. Like when he was in the HBO movie that Soderbergh did.
Oh, that was
I almost said Don't Worry Darlings. No sudden move. Like people were praising him like crazy. Like it was crazy.
He wasn't in it a lot. He was good. Yeah.
Yeah, very short moment, and then he got fucking murked by somebody. I forget. I was really pissed off about it though. But yeah, so I'm just happy to see our big boy doing that. But in bigger news, we get to talk about Lord of the Rings and do a little breakdown. Getting review bombed, like Shane said, that's inevitable.
What is the deal with? I like most Lord of the Rings fans because it's like just a general populace of like slightly nerdy dudes. So usually they're just pretty enjoyable people, but there's like a weirdest segment of the fandom that just like they fucking hate everything.
Mm-hmm.
They act and they also act like Tolkien scholars when like the movies aren't perfectly adapted like works. Like I think they're like three of the best movies. Like all three of them are probably in my top 10 all time. Like they're incredible, but they're adaptations. They're not exact to the books.
Yeah, I think there's like a bunch of different infighting camps within the Lord of the Rings community where like there's the Tolkien purists that hate even the Lord of the Rings movies. Like they think they suck because they're bastardizing the source material. There's people that love the original movies and don't want to see anything else other than them. Don't even want to see it attempted. There's other people who like partially are Tolkien purists. You know what I mean? Where it's just like you need to be a Tolkien purist up to the point of Peter Jackson, and that's it. Like we don't want adaptations to stray on that other than the exact line.
Yeah, yeah. What you like from the, you got to stick to that stuff. Like
exactly. Yeah, I always love this fact too that Tolkien has stated all of J.R. Tolkien's relatives they despise the Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings.
That's dumb.
It's crazy, and it made them like an unbelievable amount of money. Those movies did, and it spurned an insane amount of interest in their family's work. But there is a point where like they were already rich before. Like Tolkien was like very successful, so they were rich before that. So like there's a little bit of like we don't need this. I'm sure if they were in different financial situation, they'd be like all over it.
They sold the rights. Like you could have kept them. It's like a Roald Dahl fucking hated Willy Wonka.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'd love like a Roald Dahl purist out there, like the way there are Tolkien purists, and they're like Roald Dahl is being adapted wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's I'm sure there's like these for like literally every movie ever, and like sometimes it's justified. Like I would say that with Wheel of Time, like I'm not a massive Wheel of Time book reader, but like that series was ass, and like everyone hated it. Like everyone, and that was also from Amazon Prime. Everybody who liked the books hated it. People that didn't know the books and just watched the show didn't like it, and like that is where I get it. But like with something like this, where it's like, oh, buddy, you're giving me a Black Dwarf, I'm fucking gonna review bomb this. Like, dude, they're fucking dwarves and dragons. Like, where are you gonna draw the line on this shit? Like, it's crazy. Dude. But yeah, Stephen King he hates The Shining. I think he compared it to what was his words? I think he said it was like a Ferrari with no engine or something, which is like, dude, it is an awesome movie. What are you talking about?
It's got 300 horsepower. Shut the fuck up, Steven.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so Lord of the Rings, we'll do quick spoiler-free thoughts, and then we'll do a little breakdown, and then spoiler thoughts, questions, and stuff like that. For me, I went into this a little tempered because a lot of the early reviews were like, hey, the writing on this sucks. The visuals are cool, but the writing's terrible. Like, dialogue wasn't A++ by any means, but the production value, I think, does shine super well. Like, it makes the production value on House of the Dragon look like shit in comparison, which is crazy to say because the amount of money poured into both projects, not even just Lord of the Rings, but like, man, it looks like every frame looks like a legit movie. Lots of practical stuff. The CGI works when it's needed. A lot of the scenes, like, you kind of really get a grasp of like the full scope, like, which is insane. Like, when she's I guess it's spoiler free, but like, there's a lot of like giant moments that feel regular giant and not super mega green screen, which is cool. A lot of the characters or actors, I think, were like not bad. Like, I think they fit in the roles decently well. There's a lot of crossover in Game of Thrones cast members. I think actually the dude who plays Elrond played a young Ned Stark in Game of Thrones.
That's where I recognized him from. I could not put my finger on it. Yeah, he played him in the flashback. Yeah.
The scene where he fights the two Kingsguard and gets he has a funny line delivery. I forgot what it was. It's like, no, this is where it ends. Like, he says something funny like that. And also, I think the guy who played the brother of Ned Stark has a bigger role later on. I don't know. There's a few. But anyway, it looks, I really like the look of it, really like the feel of it. And I think they're establishing a good lore. There's probably like one storyline too many happening right now.
That was going to be my one complaint, but it does feel kind of, early Game of Thrones is like that too. If you want to compare, I don't really want to compare them too much because they're way different in tone. But like, early Thrones is like that, where it just kept jumping, like just all over the place, and it's gonna take me a second to figure everything out.
Yeah, exactly. So, what did you think of it?
I liked it a lot. I'd probably still higher on House of the Dragon. I do see where some of the complaints on dialogue are coming from. I'm not sure which parts they're complaining about. Did you see, like, is it the elves? Because I actually think the elves dialogue kind of falls in line with what I expect elven dialogue to sound like, just very highfalutin and wordy, and that's just how the elves talk.
That's how they talked in the movies too, which is like, I feel like very regular.
That's how they talk like assholes. The weakest part, I think, is the Shire at this point, or not the Shire, but where the hobbits are, the Harfoots. I think that was probably a bad decision going younger. I'm not sure if that's from the books, those young hobbit girls, but I think you could have stood to do someone in their 20s. It's just tough dealing with child actresses. That's just tough. And they're kind of rough. Galadriel, I would go to the end of the earth for her. I think she's probably the strongest actress on the show so far, and the most interesting character by far. The fight scene when she took down that troll was fucking sweet. Probably the best part of the series is, this is a small thing, but the establishing shots, they're CGI, but they look just phenomenal. Just
really good.
Incredible. Once you cut from one place to the next and you see just the wide landscape shots, it's beautiful. It looks better than most movies. Like, it looks better than any of the Marvel movies we've gotten this year. Probably going to look better than Black Adam. Like, you can tell they spent money on it. Like,
looks, and that's good too, because that was the one thing that was kind of going into it like a little bit sketchy, right? Because like the expectations, I guess, were like built up so high for the production value of it, and like it didn't under deliver. I think it almost over delivered what I thought would be possible for the show.
I think it did too. It looks great.
It's literally like watching a movie. It's crazy.
Do you think it still has a little bit too much of a sheen on it? Like, doesn't look lived in enough?
I think it'll come into its own. And like a good point Alex brings up is like how the Battle of the Five Armies CGI looks like dog shit compared to this. And like the budget on that movie, which like it was insane. And like it should have been so much better in a movie versus a TV show. But the TV show, everything looked so much better. And they had a lot of those shots they were talking about, the establishing ones. Like there's moments where you'd be like in an intimate moment and then you'd zoom out and then you get this like massive scope of like what is actually happening outside of that. And that's not something you get in TV really like ever, because they just can't afford to do a shot like that. And I think that was really, really cool. All right, we can do a little bit of a breakdown now. And we can start out with the first episode. You start out in Valinor, which is like, and I'm going to show you guys kind of like what, because this is like difficult to talk about without giving you like a map. So like Valinor is all the stuff is like, you see on the left continent, Like that continent on the left upper side of that's Valinor. It's on this whole separate continent we've never seen in any of the Lord of the Rings movies before. Everything that happened during The Hobbit and all Lord of the Rings movies takes place within that little red circle. It's like a super, super small little bit. And a lot of like the stuff we talk about during this one takes place in Valinor, which is all on that Leftern continent. It's the Undying Lands, which you see Frodo and company head off to during at the end of. Yeah, exactly. But if you start out there, you get a little bits of like the elves versus Morgoth, and Morgoth is like essentially the emperor to Sauron's Darth Vader, I guess. Although Darth Vader gets his redemption, Sauron kind of doesn't. In the fortress that you go to in that first episode, that like frozen wasteland is way up here. So this is Middle Earth, and you see like up near the red circled area. It's way up there. In the, I think they call it the Northern Wastes, also, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, I'm sure, Forodwaith, which is way up there. And you see the Harfoots, which you were talking about before, they're all here in this little region, Rovanion. And the Harfoots, they're kind of like pre-hobbits, like proto-hobbits, and like they're smaller, more nomadic than the regular hobbits, and I don't know, they're kind of interesting. I thought they were kind of cool.
Smaller, a little less athletic. The Bob Cousy of hobbits.
Yeah, they were kind of funny. Irish accents instead of like the English from the hobbits that the hobbits had, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're funny. I thought they were cool. They're like little gypsy hobbits in a way, which is kind of like little traveling nomads.
Gypsy hobbits.
Yeah, which is I thought it was kind of interesting. Later in that first episode, and this is instead of being like a full comprehensive breakdown, more just like in case you don't know what XYZ is, here's what it is. Elrond gets assigned towards the end of the movie to work with Celebrimbor, who you'll know if you played Mordor, Shadow of Mordor, or Shadow of War. This is the dude. He's like an elven forge or an elf forge. Yeah, elven blacksmith, I think is what I'm looking for here. He later on in the series, I don't know if they're going to show this in the series, but like the one thing he's really famous for is that he gets tricked into forging all of the rings of power by Sauron, because Sauron like goes in disguise, except for the one ring of power which Sauron makes himself. So like he's this kind of the accidental patsy or accidental fuck up of Middle Earth, like maybe one of the worst in Tolkien lore. Exactly, would hate to be that guy. And the lands that you see that like when Galadriel is going into that land, like, and she jumps ship, right? And like, it looks like she's basically going into heaven and dying or something. They're essentially just going back to Valinor. Like that's like, because in order to get into that land, you need to be immortal. You can't enter there unless you're already immortal. So like, that's kind of like, just like the passageway opening up for them to go back home.
That's why Frodo could go. Frodo and
Bilbo.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You just need to be immortal in order to get in, which is why it looked like they were like, it looked like they were dying, like straight up. And that's kind of what I thought happened originally when I watched The Lord of the Rings, and like they're all just going off into the sunset. I'm like, oh, they're, I guess, going to heaven. But yeah, that's what Valinor is all about. And episode, and this is very true. She has the endurance of like a fucking ox, dude. Like unbelievable.
She's like in a gown too.
Yeah.
With a metal sword tied to her hip. Yeah.
And she jumps out in the middle, like she basically jumped out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and was just like, I'll just swim back. Like if you see the Sundering Seas all the way down there, it is far.
Reminded me of that dude like a couple years ago that just swam around the whole, like all of England. Just like, can you imagine just swimming out there?
Like the most strenuous workout you could possibly have. And she's like, fuck it, I can do it. And luckily he runs across those guys later on. In episode 2, we see Arondir and Browen, which I'm calling the human elf cream team. They're definitely trying to make their little hybrid, right?
I didn't really like that. I'll be honest. I like
that's the one storyline where it's too much.
I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like, what's going on? Why are we doing this?
That's the one storyline where I'm like, there's a lot of cool stuff happening. I don't think this is particularly cool, especially because like the kid sucks. That kid's terrible. But yeah, so the orc that like later on attacks them in that episode, it was almost like superpowered, wasn't it? Like it didn't seem like the regular strength of an orc. The dude was like blowing the place up, like crushing shit.
Oh, I thought the same thing, but then I was like, were orcs that strong? And I just didn't notice. But yeah, no, he was like, yeah, he had like the super soldier serum. His helmet, by the way, his little cool bone. That was sick. That was about as, I think that looked better than any orc from the, I mean, if you want to say one thing about the production, that looked better than any orc ever. That looked better than the orc from the prequel, or not the prequel. It's the original.
The original, yeah. Technically, Hobbit's the prequel, so
Yeah.
But yeah, he throws that table like into the door. He like basically destroys the stairs, but it's just his hands. Like orcs are, I think regular standard orcs are supposed to be like basically human strength. So, and like
Yeah.
Urkai are like massive and strong. Like you'd expect it
Yeah.
from them. But
They're
that
like
dude is just
born from elves, right? Urkai.
yeah. They're a mixture of orcs and goblin men, and I think something else I forget. Compared to the goblins we got in the hub, yeah, the goblins looked like they're all CGI and look like shit. Azog not being practical was one of the dumbest decisions I think ever
That
made.
was awful. Yeah.
It's so in my brain, Peter Jackson and George Lucas fell victim to the same thing, which is like they had the perfect vision in that first go, and the second go, they're like, "What if I made this infinitely more complicated with special effects?" And it just fucked up the entire formula of what they had going. That was great.
I'll defend Peter Jackson too. I don't know if that was his decision. He came on really late for those Hobbit movies, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. He did
like,
come on kind of late.
Already well underway before, so I'm not sure it was his decision. But then again, he did Mortal Engines, which also looked like shit. So
yeah, looked like dog shit, man. It's just like that. The one thing I always want from a filmmaker is just do practical until you physically cannot. Like if you can afford it, it's whatever. But like do practical as much as humanly possible, please. And Elrond goes and visit. I can get rid of our little
our map.
I forgot. Yeah. So Elrond goes to visit Durin the Fourth, who's an ancestor of Thorin Oakenshield from The Hobbit, and he's also an ancestor of some other characters. A couple other ones that might be of note later on, I think. The doors are in Khazad-dûm, which is the kingdom we've seen in the Lord of the Rings trilogies. That's where they passed through during the first movie, during Fellowship of the Ring. And obviously, this is before they dig up the Balrog, who later on kills the Durin. We see the Balrog kills that guy's grandson, which kind of sets everything in motion. Galadriel, he gets rescued by that guy named Halbrand, right? The dude on the boat. That dude is 100% going to become a Nazgul, right?
Oh, you think so?
Like that has it written all over it in my brain, where it's like his one goal in his brain is like, I need to kill orcs, and he's going to get to somehow become a leader of men throughout the next few maybe seasons, and then he is 100% going to get corrupted by a ring of power.
Fuck, I didn't even think of that. I was just like, this guy's cool as fuck.
I think it's going to happen, and like the relationship between, like the friendship between Galadriel and Halbrand will make it tough on her.
Do you think that was the Arkenstone at the end? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so we can get into some of the theory stuff. The secret that the doors were hiding, it feels like it was the heart of the mountain, right? And
yeah,
so
it was glowing, like, yeah.
So the Arkenstone, the one you see in the Hobbits, that's from Erebor, which is a different mountain range completely. So like it's a different one for this purposes. Like it's just a different heart of their mountain, I guess, in Moria. I have no idea, but it seems like it's going to be something like that. There was also some other treasures and stuff. Like, do you remember in the Hobbit when good old boy Lee Pace was talking about like, oh, the elves have like a bunch of treasures the dwarves left in there, and like I'm sure maybe there was like a vice versa. Maybe that's that, like some of the treasures that they were afraid of the elves wanted that the dwarves are kind of hoarding. Another question: who the fuck is the naked dude?
There's some theories going around. I've seen some of them. I don't really like to deep dive too much into shows like this because it will just become like homework at that point. But I saw some people saying Sauron. I don't think it's Sauron.
Yeah.
Because I think they've shown what Sauron is going to pretty much look like, even though I know he can take different shapes and different appearances. They've shown what he's going to look like in this series for the most part. With those like piercing blue or purple eyes.
Yeah.
I saw some people say it might be Gandalf.
I thought Saruman maybe.
Yeah, or Saruman.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, and he can't be Sauron because he doesn't know hobbits exist.
Yeah.
But then again, that falls in line. You know, people don't think about hobbits. He could have just like forgotten. Like,
see, this is part of the thing is like the wizards do come in a totally different age, like later on, but this is again an adaptation. So maybe they're like, hey, let's throw a name brand guy in here, like Saruman, and maybe move with that. I don't know, but it would be really cool if he was one of the wizards.
What are the wizards called? Aren't they like heirs or something? Like
they have like a different name.
Yeah, they're like celestial, like ethereal beings before they come into existence, right?
Yeah. So like based on the actual lore, it shouldn't be a wizard, but it seems like, especially because when you look at some of the scenes in Lord of the Rings that between Sauron and or between Gandalf and Saruman, like they have scenes where they like use speech to influence shit around them. Like
Yeah.
you remember the scene where Saruman's like sitting on the top of I think it's the Tower of War thing, and he's sitting there going like, oh, and like he's bringing down an entire fucking mountain on
Yeah.
top of Gandalf, and Gandalf's doing the same thing going the other way, and like Gandalf, when he yells at Bilbo when Bilbo thinks he's trying to rob him, he like yells and like a storm appears over his head.
Do not take me as some conjurer of cheap tricks.
Great line from Gandalf too. So like that to me is what that little bit of this naked dude reminded me of. He could be a blue wizard. Yeah, I mean I don't know a lot of how this would work. Also, yes, Tom Bombadil deserves a big time spinoff. The dude is like sneakily a top 5 most powerful creature in all of Middle Earth, and all he does is sing and dance. Dude rocks.
Which one's
Oh,
he?
you would know him, but I don't think if you don't know him yet, you gotta Google Tom Bombadil. The dude fucking rocks. He is so good. One of my favorite powers to use in Battle for Middle Earth too, as well. Another question I had was who took Arondir, like that little when he went in the tunnel and like the claws kind of came out and grabbed him and pulled him away.
Oh yeah.
I got no clue what that is. And like it seemed like at first it was the roots, but like when I watched it again, it looked more like fingers. So like
I thought it was like little goblin fingers. I don't know.
Yeah, but they pulled them so fast. Like I don't know. And like they're
God.
I'm just trying to think like there was like
books.
Yeah, read all those books.
I actually have, but it was like when I was like 13, so I didn't retain much of it. I read The Hobbit a few times because I actually like The Hobbit the best, book wise, because I think it's really digestible in comparison to the others. But yeah, no, I can't remember any of that lore. That's so much. It's so much lore.
I would love to be that guy in Tolkien verse where it's just like, hey, just read the Silmarillion and spend like a month doing it. No. This dude rhymes all the time. Like Bombadil rocks. Like that's his little theme song or whatever you want to call it, like his little rhyme. And like, yeah, they wouldn't give him to it because he's just a fool. He's just like this dumb fool that's wildly powerful. He rocks.
Love that.
Yeah, fucking Tom Bombadil, man. He had so many great lines. But yeah, so I don't know what took Arondir, and also who saved Halbrand and Galadriel at the end of the last episode. Because like I feel like they're like building them up to actually be someone, right? Like be someone of importance. But I don't know in what context, like if that's like a man or an elf or something else. In some of the what do you call it, like the preview clips and stuff, it looks like Halbrand goes to the Undying Land somehow. So like I don't know if maybe that's an elf that brings him back. But yeah, so
confused by that.
Yeah, I was very confused by that as well. I don't know how that's gonna work out, but I don't know. I really have no clue how it's gonna work out.
I'm just here for the ride, to be honest.
Yeah.
With both these shows out right now, they both have a lot of source material behind them, and just kind of avoiding spoiling it too much for myself. Yeah, makes the show that much more fun.
Yeah, and also a good thing about it is that they're not going like word for word with any book. Like they're kind of forging their own path here, which is kind of cool. Yeah. The barrel rides are scary as fuck. Those things are really creepy in Lord of the Rings lore. Hated fighting them in Battle for Middle Earth as well. Okay, so just as far as like spoiler thoughts, I think a lot of the way, especially like they portray some of the other things in like within the universe, like the brick breaking competition that Elrond and Durin had was cool. The bigger scale fight scenes that they show from like the first battle with Morgoth and Sauron were really cool. Like especially
really cool.
The scene with the helmet getting placed on the thing could be sick.
A good shot.
Yeah. Guy could be from Numenor. Numenor is an interesting world of men. They're like, so I don't know if you know, it's like Aragorn's like 100 years old during the events of Middle Earth.
He's like a descendant of first men or something, right?
He's the descendant of the Numenorians or Dunedain or whatever. They have like extended lifespans from humans, and they're smarter. They're essentially men that like helped the elves during the battle against Morgoth, and the elves kind of rewarded them with being smarter and being stronger and living longer. So their race of men is like super strong. They help take over like Sauron comes back at one point, and the men of Numenor basically go right up to his doorstep, and Sauron is like, I have no chance of beating these dudes. So he gives up, and he just like is like, all right, I give up. You can take me as your hostage back to Numenor to decide what to do. And he essentially, because men have like such weak wills, he like influences the king of Numenor to let him go and and eventually becomes his like top political advisor, and then influences the Numenorians, who have like the biggest army. They're like basically a maritime empire. They're like, if you could imagine like Great Britain, except they're all hot, smart, and super strong.
I can't imagine Great Britain like that.
Exactly. That's the thing. Is like, but they have this big ass maritime empire, and they're huge fucking army. And they're like, okay. And Sauron sort of influences him. Like, he's like, okay, we're going to use you guys. The only way you guys are going to become immortal, because he's like, that's what they kind of want. They're like, we live really long, but we want to be fully immortal. Yeah. It's like, the only way you're going to do that is if you sail your entire army back to Valinor, back to the Undying Lands. That's in that realm, you'll be immortal. So the Numenorians like build up like this big army and get ready to go. And then I forget the name of like there's like basically the god in Lord of the Rings. He's like, well, you know what? Fuck these guys. So he sends a tidal wave and sinks Numenor, which is an island, into the sea, and just destroys everything they have except for the people that had already left and gone to Middle Earth and were establishing their own thing, which includes the Dunedain, which become like the Rangers, and all the other people, including like Elendil, which is like a character you see in the first part of the first Lord of the Rings movie, and Isildur, like those type of guys. But yeah, they are a fascinating race of dudes, and that'd be interesting.
This is a question for you. That sword, the Broken Hill, whose sword is that?
It looked like an elven sword, but it had the sigil of
it's like
Sauron.
Got some blood magic going on there. Yeah,
I think it kind of reminded me of this bit from when I watched Wheel of Time. There's like this dagger that this guy, a good guy, picks up, and like it slowly corrupts him into being a bad guy, and that's what they kind of got the feel of with that. So you know what I mean? Okay. Yeah, I think it could be kind of interesting. Is this a show worth watching for someone who hasn't watched the movies?
I mean, yeah, but I would just watch the movies, man. They're, I mean, they're fucking incredible. They really
first three.
Yeah. Then I'll defend the first two Hobbits. They're not great, but they're fun. I think they're fun. The third one is a fucking disaster. Yeah, then you'd be good to go. The games are fun too.
Yeah, games are awesome. I would say like this isn't like tied directly into anything really from Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't need this all takes place before.
It's a completely different adaptation too.
Yeah,
that's what people got to realize. It's not going to tie into the movies. It will tie in because they come from the same source material, but they aren't connected. Like they aren't like the same. They're not the same. It'd be like if Sony made a Spider-Man and then Marvel made their own Spider-Man. That's they're two different takes on the source.
Exactly. Yeah. First two Hobbits are good. Yeah. Martin Freeman was a good Hobbit actor. He was like a perfect Hobbit.
He was.
That's very true.
I'm going on an adventure.
This the blade does kind of look like, I think it's a Morgul blade, the one that stabs Frodo. It like disintegrates into whatever, and like this looks like it was whatever the opposite of disintegrating is, reintegrating. It was like pushing itself forward. Maybe. I mean, I could see that. I could see obviously not Morgul blade, but it would be something like it was cursed with like some blood magic or some bullshit. That kid's dead as fucking. He's dead as a doorknob.
Good.
That dude.
I don't like that kid.
Yeah. Yeah. They make the Meteor Man Gandalf. I'll shit my ass. Again, timeline wise, it doesn't fit. It shouldn't be it, but it's their own adaptation. They could do literally anything they want. Token heads would shit their pants over it, I'm sure. But like for the rest of us, we'd be like, damn, this rocks, I think, for the most part.
I feel like it rocks, but
yeah. Like I'm not a massive Tolkien purist. So like I would love Gandalf or Saruman.
If I wanted it to be exact to the books, I'd just read the books.
Exactly.
Like that's just as simple as it gets. Like I just read the books if I wanted to be exact to the books.
Yeah. So as far as the other stuff goes with this one, I think there is like one too many storylines going on. Like the elf woman relationship thing is just like it feels out of place versus the other things happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's everything else is like super grand in scope, and then this guy's kind of having this like romantic detective noir story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's just I don't think that needed to be there at all.
Yeah, exactly. This is interesting. If he was like essentially, if Gandalf being a Hobbit expert would kind of make sense because he was almost like there for the creation of like Cro-Magnons. Like he was like he understands humans before they're even humans.
He loves the hobbits. He loves them.
Yeah, he loves the hobbits and he loves smoking their weed. That's the two things everyone knows about Gandalf. That was one of the notes that Bezos added. I'm sure that was so funny. He's like, but like the article, like the headline is very misleading because like the article is just like, yeah, I gave them notes and like I'm happy that they didn't listen to and like kind of like did their own thing, but like they didn't use my notes. Like so, he was grateful that they didn't. Apparently,
I don't even think they were his notes. I think they were his son's.
That would make sense.
He said that his son is a token level scholar. Like he said that his son is like, and his son told him not to fuck it up. And like,
yeah,
there were some funny quotes about his son in there. Like apparently his son is just like the biggest Lord of the Rings nerd possible. And I think that's like what led to all of this.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Aaron Deer's armor was sick. Like the carved into wood look with the face. It almost looks like the trees that they pray to in Game of Thrones. You know what I'm talking about?
The what?
The trees that they pray to. Like
oh yeah. Good look. And are you talking about with the
in Game of Thrones? No, in Game of Thrones, yeah. But yeah, this is also just a fact. There's no two ways about it. She's just like ethereally.
I come on this show and I come on LCB every week, and I just every time there's a woman character on my screen, I just can't help but fall in love. There's a powerful woman character. I'll fall for her.
Yeah, dude, and she's like
Galadriel's no exception. She is absolutely just a babe.
And I will say to this point, I would not call her a smoke show. Like I think she's ethereally beautiful. Like, you know what I mean? Like she looks artistically beautiful.
When they do those, and I really like that they did pay a little homage to the trilogy with a lot of their shots. And one of the shots that they kept frequently using were those close-up shots on the eyes. And they used a lot of those in the original trilogy. And I loved it. When they pulled that shot onto Galadriel, she looks like her eyes, this brow area, it looks just like Cate Blanchett. They did a really good job casting her. Was she featured on Barstool Sports? I don't know. I'll have to ask whoever's doing that.
You're gonna have to text Tommy Smokes.
Yeah, Tommy.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I agree. I completely forgot to even mention that the eye shots, because like that is a great like homage. Like her eyes are incredibly powerful in the books and stuff too. So like including that, plus the fact that like those shots are very keyed in Lord of the Rings when you meet Galadriel. Like it was awesome. I was expecting to hear when she did the scene where she kind of stares down the king. I forget his name. Galadriel.
He's got a really tough one.
Garabad. I don't know. It's a hyphenated name, but she has like the stare down with him, and I half expected you to hear like the her projecting her thoughts into his head, like she does in the movies. But maybe that's something she catches on to later. But yeah, really liked it. Gil-Hadad. Shane says. I think there's a hyphen between there. Gil-Galad. Okay, I was gonna say Gil-Hadad would be that's like a Bella Hadid sister or something, like Gil-Galad. Yeah, I think that fits.
Gil-Hadad has weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, that's not one that I think fits in the elf world. Speaking of homages, the combat did feel like OG Lord of the Rings, like especially when you see her fighting the snow troll in the first episode. That looks like when Legolas is fighting any given creature in Lord of the Rings.
When he's just like almost like he's doing
fluid
it's such fluid acrobatics. Like that's how they fight. It's cool.
Ooh, this would be sick if he was Glorfindel.
Who's Glorfindel?
Damn, he's a really cool dwarf. Like you get to play as him in Battle for Middle Earth. He's like a super powerful warrior.
He's a dwarf?
Sorry, super powerful elf. He's a very, very powerful warrior though. The goddamn beast. It would be really, 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 really cool.
Yeah, the catapult off the sword was cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. Dude, there were so many good fights in that. And like all those, it did really feel like when Legolas is fighting like the cave troll, when he's fighting like the Mumakil, like it's just all, like you're saying, like super, super fluid acrobatic movements. But yeah, really like the show so far. There is like the screenwriting and some of the dialogue is a little dull sometimes, but like we're in this mystical fantasy world. Like it's not like we're watching like some modern set romantic drama or something, you know what I mean? Like it's just gonna kind of be like that. You didn't like the sword catapult? I thought it was kind of cool, guys. I was like, what the fuck is he doing?
Cool.
I liked it. I think it fit already. And yeah, this is also something I think we forgot to talk about. The bromance between these two is very cool. I did like their relationship.
The dwarves are just bros, but that's as simple as it. They're dudes rock. Dwarves are dudes rock, literally.
Yeah. Get more dwarves in this thing. We had a lot of dwarves. We probably had more dwarves than any other race in the entire thing. When you go through Casa Dune, there's like 1 trillion dwarves.
Dwarves are ugly again too. That was one. That was one issue with the Hobbit. They made some of the dwarves way too hot.
This is an oddly specific reference. I would say the one catapult scene I recognize is actually a trebuchet scene from Return of the King, where number one, Nazgul comes in and blows up a trebuchet and drops the guy down like 5 levels lower. And then there's also the one trebuchet that gets launched at, I forget there was super ugly orc that general that looked like Harvey Weinstein, Gormoth or something, or it's something like fuck, whatever. But like the stone falls and like he jumps out of the way at the last second, and all the other orcs like, huh? I always like that's my catapult scene from Lord of the Rings. Stone breaking contest was really cool. Did enjoy it a ton. I thought that was a very interesting, like little dive into a sub bit of lore like that. I always love that when it's like some sort of rite of passage or trial when you're like trying to explore a new race or species or peoples in any sort of fantasy series. I always love shit like that. Like whatever it is with the Klingons, fucking Gothmog. I knew I was close. Whether it's like the Klingons where they have the fight to the death over honor and shit, like all that stuff is cool to me. But anyway, that's Lord of the Rings. Now we get to do a draft of Lord of the Rings characters. Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones characters combined, because again, both this series, this Lord of the Rings series, and House of the Dragon coming out at the same time is just wild and very cool for us fantasy heads.
It is,
especially high fantasy heads. Yeah,
awesome.
Great time for us to be alive. But yeah, we're gonna draft of both of these groups of characters combined. I'm gonna go first. You're gonna go second. We'll snake. I will start out with Tyrion Lannister. I feel like he's a de facto. I feel like he's the de facto #1 Game of Thrones character, and I feel like there's so much. There's more depth in Lord of the Rings. Great. Oh well, we'll see. Well, now you get to go.
Tyrion. We'll talk about Tyrion for a second though. He does. Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of the best scenes, and some people say it's overacted, but I think it's one of the best scenes in television history. His trial when he says, "You hate me because I'm a monster," and he's like, "I did kill him." I mean, that's it. Mm-hmm. That was unreal. And Peter Dinklage deserves all the awards he got and all the roles he's gotten afterwards.
He was so consistent too throughout the entire series as far as like quality of acting, and like he did do the sort of like devolution from like the pervy weirdo that's secretly smart to like going through serious emotional depth and issues and problems. The scene where he kills his dad, like all those scenes are like insanely good.
Oh,
and
yeah,
like
where he killed his dad, that was unreal.
That rocked. That was a really fucking hard.
His relationship with Jaime was always just amazing. The way they acted together, like knowing that his brother was a piece of shit, but just having to cape for him anyway. Like, love that.
Yeah, and always trying to like kind of do the right thing too. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like very rarely doing something that like is directly
one of the few characters in Game of Thrones that do that.
Yeah, and I think a de facto character that everyone was like, I kind of wish this guy could have the Iron Throne at the end of the show because he's the one good guy. Yeah, but yeah, so you're up.
I'm going Aragorn. Come on, the rightful king.
Make your case.
Make my case. Make my case. He's the coolest fucking character in Lord of the Rings. He gets the undead army to fight for him. He's the rightful king of Mordor.
Of Gondor.
Of Gondor, sorry. The names will always fuck me up. He's got what's her face on his side. He's got
Eowyn or
not Eowyn.
Yeah.
Arwen. Steven Tyler's daughter, Liv Tyler.
Eowyn was horny for Aragorn, but he didn't return the favor, which was also pretty cool.
One of the cooler out of these two options. I mean, he's got one of the coolest and most badass character entrances when he's in the pub in the dark, just smoking the pipe, and the pipe just lights up his eyes just a little bit. So fucking cool. I thought he was going to be easy 1A. I guess I was wrong. Aragorn is easily my #1 pick.
He also has he has great speeches. His speech at the Black Gate, like, but it is not this day. Like, that is an awesome speech and expertly acted. But yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying, for dude. Like, she was horned up for him, and he was just like, sorry, I got an elven hottie waiting for me at home.
Here's a little bit of fun trivia too. Did you know that when he kicked that helmet in Two Towers?
Yeah, I love it, and I didn't get a chance to watch with my girlfriend yet the extended edition of the Two Towers. Did I tell you how I tricked her into watching the first one?
You tricked her into watching an extended edition?
So for our last Valentine's Day, she gave me like one of those like goofball coupon cards things, right? And one of them was like watch an entire movie with you with no interruptions at all. And I was just like, okay, we're gonna watch Lord of the Rings. And she's like, okay.
We're not allowed to speak.
Yeah, it's just she no interrupting, no phone, no nothing. And I was just like, we're gonna watch the first Lord of the Rings. And she's like, okay. And we're about like 2.5 hours in because I put on the extended edition. I did not make it easy. I did not put on the standard edition. Put on the extended. We're about 2.5 hours in. She's like, it's been a really long time. Are you almost over? And I was just like, yeah, don't worry about it, babe. We're almost there.
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half later, she's just like, are you fucking with me? Like, we're not even close to done. Because she sees, because I had to like look and put on a caption for something. And like, she sees like the progress bar. And she's like, we're not even halfway done. And oh man, it was brutal, but it was a good learning experience. But yeah, I think we're gonna have to get her on Two Towers because that's when shit really hits the fan. Okay, you're back up.
Oh, I'm back up. Okay, give me 1 second. I didn't put down a list. I was a little busy this morning. But let me go through here. Let me look at some of the character names. I'm just looking through character names right now.
There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of like my pool here is massive. I went down to around 30 picks, and like it's very difficult. I didn't order them, which I probably should have, but do I prefer Lord of the Rings to every other series? I'm not sure exactly what you mean. I think Lord of the Rings, the first Lord of the Rings, is the best trilogy. But yeah, big fan of that.
Okay, I'm gonna go. I'll go back to back. Yeah, I'll go back to back Lord of the Rings, and I'm gonna go Gandalf.
Yeah,
Gandalf is cool as fuck. Just a stellar performance, acting wise too. I like him almost, and this is probably a cold take. I actually like him better as the Gray. I like Gandalf the Gray.
No, I think that's a hot take. I think it's a great take. That's a great take.
He's just more laid back, more whimsical. I like him like that. All of his interactions with hobbits are just perfect.
Hilarious.
They're just perfect. He just loves them so much. Like he loves them. It's like when you see like a lineman hanging out with like a quarterback and he just loves his quarterback so much.
Yeah.
And the lineman is just like towers over him. But he's just like, I love this dude. Love this little guy.
He's like, all they like to do is drink, smoke, and dance. Like these people rock. They don't bother anyone. They're like the perfect species.
He really is anyone else. He's just like a wandering stoner. When he's the White, he comes back. Obviously, he's a lot more badass. I love it when he gets Shadowfax. It's one of my favorite little lines, like throwaway lines. Shadowfax, the Lord of all horses.
And then that slow-mo run right up the hill.
The only actor Oscar nominated. I did not know that.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Deserved. I think more people probably should have deserved it too. I thought there were some great performances across the board, but yeah, no, Gandalf rules. Not much else to say.
Also, just sneakily, the most probably out of all the characters in the first Lord of the Rings trilogy, at least on the good side, like the most powerful, not named Galadriel.
Oh yeah, like, he's the most. Yeah,
he was like, especially when he's in Gandalf the White mode, he went true goblin mode on that one.
He went goblin mode. Yeah, when he fights and can't go past without talking about the Balrog fight. The opening to Two Towers when it just cuts straight into that fight. So quick.
Yeah, he was incredible. Even the scene where he like comes over the hill with Éomer and like all the horsemen, or Hiram in Helm's Deep was an awesome scene as well. All right, now I'm up. He would have been. I was really hoping you would let him fall by going with the Game of Thrones pick so I could get him. He's out.
I'm sorry. I had to do it. I thought I was like maybe I'll go back and forth, but I was like, no, I got to take what's best I got to go best player available.
Yeah, no, I get that. For me, this is where it gets hard. I don't want to go too Thrones heavy, so I'll start. Oh, fuck, this is really, really hard now. I know because we have so many characters left too, which is the crazy part. But I'll go with Merry and Pippen. I'm gonna take them as a package deal, by the way.
That's fair.
I think that's very fair.
That's
go with Merry and Pippen. I think that they are incredible in multiple ways. I think they're like obviously the comedy relief in all the Lord of the Rings movies, but they also have like a lot of emotional depth, like a lot of great scenes, especially after they get separated in the beginning of I think it's Return of the King. The scenes like they have separately and the moments they have separately, Pippin with Gandalf and Merry with Éowyn, they're amazing. And like they're kind of like bro-y friendship. I always really liked, always really admired. I just liked how they're just like little fatzos that just love nothing more than food and beer. And like the scene where he's like, yeah, they do have a podcast together. This is true. And we actually interviewed Dominic Monaghan who plays Mary a while back, and we talked a bit about that. But yeah, so I just think that both of them, like, yeah, just the fact that they're friends in real life is amazing.
This is one of my favorite shots.
Yep.
From the whole, him and Eowyn.
Yep.
It's so great.
Dude, it's so good. They're amazing, and I just think that their friendship is incredible. It's just built on food, drink, and weed, and I do think that they just provided such a soul for the movies, and I just really, really, really like them a lot. After them, I'm gonna go with, and this is where it gets sketchier again. I think I'll go with a character that if you're talking about just sheer performance value, it's hard to say anyone put more into it than Lord of the Rings than them, and I'll pick Gollum. I think Andy Serkis's Gollum, one of the ultimate two-pronged performances ever done, in my opinion.
If he does that performance 10 years later, he wins almost there. He wins at least for Two Towers and probably for, I don't know, he probably picks up a nom for Return of the King. I mean, it's the scene where he's staring into the water and he's going back and forth with his two different personalities. It is so good. It's so good. He was, I mean, he redefined what acting could be in terms of mocap. I mean,
that monologue with him in the water is one of the craziest scenes, and I do think like the combination of him having to do two distinctly different roles within that movie, or within all the movies, and also having to give like the physicality to Gollum and like the voice and like all the shit he did himself. And I do think that he just is like a very stellar force throughout all the movies that goes kind of underappreciated, versus like guys like Aragorn or Gandalf. Like the bad guys in a lot of these movies are just as good as any of the good guys, and like they're, as far as performance value goes. So you're back up now.
It's taters, my precious. What's taters?
Even that scene was like the scene where the mashed potato scene is like so funny to me. Like it's just great.
God, should I go? It's too early for who I'm thinking on throne side. Damn. Sorry, I gotta do it, but I'm sticking with Lord of the Rings. I'm going Samwise. I love Samwise. He's just your best friend. He's just the best buddy in the world. Maybe I know Lord of the Rings people don't like it when I say it, but there was a little bit. They were pretty fucking romantic. In the trilogy. I mean, there was definitely like some undertones there. I don't know if they intended it that way, but they shot it that way. And
there's a very funny prank they did during, I think, the promotion of Return or Two Towers, where Dominic Monaghan over a satellite interview pretended to be a German interviewer interviewing Elijah Wood, and he's like pretending to be this guy. He's like, so is it two hobbits, you and Samwise, you are gay, right? And Elijah Wood just cracks up laughing. He's like, no, we're not gay. Why would you think that? And he's like, but your co-star, what the fuck, Sean Astin. He's like, but Sean Astin, he is gay, right? And he's like, no, he's not gay. He has a wife. And it's one of the funniest videos. If you ever get a chance to watch that, watch the Dominic Monaghan pranking Elijah Wood. I got to see that now. But yeah, no, Samwise is awesome. I wasn't dropping no eaves, sir. I swear. God, he's just the best buddy. I'll carry you. Like, oh, I love him. It's just, and that's really the central theme of the first trilogy. Is it's about friendship and overcoming things through friendship. I mean, can you imagine if the movies are coming out in reverse order? If someone like, let's say the Lord of the Rings trilogy came out when The Hobbit came out. Imagine if they cast like the dude who played Rudy as a Hobbit. You'd be like, what in the fuck are they doing? But he was so good. He crushed it. Yeah. No, he's probably the number one ride or die guy ever. Like, all right, you're back up. Oh, okay. I'm gonna go back to Thrones, or not. I'm gonna go to Thrones now, and it's tough because I don't like the way his character developed in the final season, but I feel like you got to kind of throw it out. There's a lot of bad character decisions in the final two seasons, but I'm going Jon Snow. Yeah. Jon Snow was awesome. He was just the easy underdog to root for through the whole series. Always trying to do the right thing. His voice is just, I mean, there's so many lines that people they use the Jon Snow voice for things like, my queen, I won't do it. I don't want it. I don't want it. He was great in that role. And there were so many cool moments with Jon Snow, the Battle of the Bastards, just an iconic gif. Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about iconic gifts. Every time you throw up a bad opinion online, you just do the sword with all the horses coming at you. He was a great brother, even though they were so mean to him early on, except for Arya. Yeah, I love him. He's just cool until he started fucking his aunt, and then it got a little
stuff to get a little shady after there, but also like that's a weird role because I love the character. I don't think Kit Harington is a particularly strong actor.
I don't think he's a very good
at
actor
all. But the character is still so good, and I think that's a testament to how good the writing was, especially in those first seasons.
Let's be honest about Lord of the Rings. You got a lot of bad actors in there. Like Orlando Bloom is not a great.
No, he's eye candy, and that movie propelled him or helped propel him to be like one of the highest grossing actors of 2000 to 2005. Like he was in every huge blockbuster ever during that period. It was crazy.
Too. Yeah. No, he's about my size. He's like 5'7" or something like that.
And but the weird thing is, like, he did get married to the girl who played Rose. I forget her name.
Rose. Her name is Rose.
Byrne. It is Rose. Yeah. Something like that. But but the weird thing is that Kit Harington, I don't think he was strong in that, but like you watch, was it 7 Days in Hell or whatever?
He was so good in that.
It was hilarious.
That's his best performance. He needs to do comedy. He's so funny in that.
He had phenomenal delivery in that movie. He was so fucking funny.
The scene where he takes the call, the voicemail from the Queen, and he just goes and stands in the corner.
Yeah. She's like, how do you think you're gonna win this game? And he's like, describes the process of tennis to the interviewer. He's like, well, they're gonna serve it to me. I'm gonna serve it back.
Keeps saying indubitably.
Yeah, indubitably when he doesn't understand what's going on. Yeah,
probably a fake word, I think, and like it just. He's like, I think he heard it. Just can't stop using it.
It was so fucking funny. Yeah, so I think that's a great pick, and just like he was the ultimate. Other than Tyrion, he is the ultimate good guy in that show. Like everyone universally is rooting for them no matter what, and I think everyone is really pissed with his shake at the end of things. You know what I mean? Like him having to go back out to the frozen wasteland.
Dumb. I mean, I'm excited for his little series that they got cooking now, though. I think that could be interesting. Going beyond the wall, exploring some stuff we haven't seen. That would be interesting.
All right, so now I have back to back. I will start it with the aunt that he fucked, Daenerys. Daenerys, it's another one where you can very similar to Jon Snow, where she was maybe the best character of the show until that last season, where they kind of made some questionable decisions with her. But she's responsible for all the moments in Game of Thrones. She's responsible for most of the goosebump moments, right? Like the moments that make you really go like, oh shit, like. Those are almost all come from Daenerys doing something, whether it's like the dragons. Well, almost every one of these scenes does involve a dragon, but she has great speeches, great dragon moments. And like when she flies into the stadium or when the Drogon comes into the stadium and helps her, when she shows up and burns all the masters, that scene is, I think, top 5 in Game of Thrones. And for me, where she's like, kill the masters.
See it coming, but it's like, yeah, she's got to take this fucking dragon. Yeah.
And then she just, that scene ends with her leaving, I forget which city that was. It wasn't Volantis. It was Astapor. She leaves Astapor and like it just fills out with her entire army leaving. Like she went in there with nothing and comes out with the entire army. Like she was an incredibly badass and cool character. And she just like, she rocked, man. And she went through a lot of trials and tribulations. Like, you know what I mean? Out of all the characters, she probably had the shittiest shake and rebounded from it to being the queen of all of Westeros. Like she was a fucking monster. After her,
you're not a dragon. Dragons don't burn. What did
she say to her brother? You're not a Targaryen. Targaryens don't burn. She said to her brother.
Yeah, and she was a smoke.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. I wish they gave her purple eyes still, but like,
really sad what happened with her. Have you kept up with what happened? Where she like
to Emilia Clarke?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, she had I think it was an aneurysm.
Oh, yeah.
She couldn't do lines for like a year. Like she like almost lost her like speech. She couldn't.
Yeah.
But she's better now, she said. Which is good.
Shout out to Emilia Clarke.
Yeah. And then also another character that's gonna be in the MCU here soon, right? Secret Wars.
Yes, she's gonna play one of the I forget what. Shoot. What are the changeling dudes? I think she's playing one of those. I forget.
Girl.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure about that though. Don't quote me on it. She had 2 brain aneurysms. Holy shit, that's insane.
Terrifying.
Anyway, after that, I'll go with another. She's like the flip side of this coin. Cersei Lannister.
That was gonna be my pick. If I had to pick my favorite female character from the show, it's Cersei.
Cersei rocks, and like I think what makes her so cool is like you hate her, but also root for her which like shouldn't be the case. Like that's so hard to do. Like the scene where she blows up the Sept of Baelor, I was never rooting for someone's ass for that hard at any point of the show than I was rooting for her to be victorious. And she has a lot of like really good scenes, both like devilish and evil and like sad and like triumphant. Like she's great in every part of that show, and like start to finish, she's one of the strongest actresses, I would say too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think she might have been the strongest actress on the whole show. She nailed it. She came up and she fucking nailed it. One of the best written characters in the show. I mean, because you're like you can sympathize with her, as evil as she is. You're like, she's doing this all for family. I mean, that's always what it was about for her. Always about family and love, which is insane. But like, yeah, she was great.
There was so many moments too. Like she has so many marquee moments. I think one that always stands out to me is her delivery when she confronts Littlefinger in the court, and he says the whole thing like knowledge is power, and she's like, well, actually, power is power. And she like tells her guards like turn around, cut his throat, and like they grab him about to cut his throat. And she's like, oh, I changed my mind. Go walk back 3 paces and turn around. Like that scene is so good. Yeah, and I think very indicative of Cersei as a character, which is, and she just is awesome. Great character. All right, you're up with back to back.
So this will be pick number 5 for me, right?
This is pick number 5 for you. Yeah.
Okay. Just thinking of how I want to space it out. God, there's so many cool characters. I love them.
It's hard to pick.
It really is. I love fantasy so much. I'm going to go Sandor Clegane.
Yeah, the Hound. Yeah, he was next up on my list.
Baby. He just fucking rules. Just trying to eat his chicken. And I think a lot of subplots in Game of Thrones would sometimes bore me. I love the show, but there were some subplots I just couldn't get into. A lot of the Stannis stuff early on killed me. Like it just got really boring. But his subplot with Arya, even though it sometimes just felt like it was going nowhere, I just loved all the time we got to spend with them. It was one of the more enjoyable, just change of pace moments. I really love that character, and he's just hell-bent on revenge against the Mountain. And we just everyone knew it was going to happen in the final season. I do think it was a bit of a letdown when it did, but the Clegane Bowl, awesome. Yeah.
He has so many great scenes. He's almost like, in my mind, he reminds me of Joel and Ellie in Last of Us. You know what I mean? Like that father-daughter relationship where it's very gruff at first, but it definitely turns into something softer over time. But yeah, I really liked him. Also like some depth to that character as well, like
because he's dealing with like family trauma, like burned half his face off. Like
great delivery too. I forget that actor's name, but he has some awesome delivery throughout that movie.
He's a guy I haven't seen much else now that I think about it.
Have you ever watch Hot Fuzz?
Yeah, of course.
He's the guy that works in the supermarket, the dumb one that's really tall, and like Simon Pegg beats him by throwing a stuffed elephant at him, and he's looking like, ooh, and then he like knocks him out. Yeah, it's random bit that he was in. Darb. That was the only word he said throughout the entire series, the entire time. He just went Darb, and funny dude. All right, you're back up.
And you know what? I'm gonna go back to back here. Game of Thrones. I'm gonna pick his running mate. I'm gonna take Arya. Arya's badass. I mean, she was cool as shit. I think she might be the most universally beloved character on the show, because outside of maybe Jon Snow, that could be the only character I think would beat her out. Because I feel like a lot of people hated Daenerys early on anyways. There were a lot of people. I feel like every character on the show had its haters. Maybe not Tyrion. Actually, now that I think about Tyrion, actually probably the most beloved. But Arya is just cool. All the stuff she did. I mean, when she started killing people, that's when she really turned the corner for me. When she came back and pulled the Scott Tennermeyer feeding.
It was so good.
I put them in a pie and fed them. That was so cool. Yeah. Every time I didn't see this. Every time Sanders said the word cunt, he could say cunt with the best of them.
Oh yeah, and he says it with like a true menace behind it as well.
So I've taken the Hound and Arya together.
Arya, I think, fell victim to, as much as any of the other characters, to like a very poor just character decisions in the last season.
She shouldn't have been the one to kill the Night King.
No.
That was dumb. That was a bad decision. I get what they were going for. it was just like, and then it was just so easy.
Yeah.
One stab.
Yep.
All it took.
And that was it. All that work leading up towards that moment, and it just felt.
One episode.
I don't know, man. That was kind of a bummer.
That was the episode, by the way. People were worried about that showrunner leaving. House of the Dragon. That showrunner is the one who, after that episode where no one could see what the fuck was happening, he said everyone had shitty TVs.
Yep, same dude. It's like, oh, your TVs are just ass. Like, no, bro, you're fucking doing this. Like,
people were like, I just bought a $5,000 OLED. Like, it's for black coloration. Like, no.
Yeah. All right, shit. Now I have to do back to back. All right, let's start with, I think this is a very short and sweet character from Game of Thrones, except I guess the opposite is sweet. Ramsay Bolton. I think I thought
I could get him later. Fuck.
Ramsay Bolton, I think, is no character in Game of Thrones inspired more actual visceral emotion out of me than Ramsay Bolton did. You know what I mean? Like the pure hatred.
Medieval Joker. That's what I thought.
Yes, literally, yes. He's just a fucking psychopath, and like his
motherfucker.
Sadistic and like purely unhinged psychotic, and like the way that actor acts him, he does it perfectly. And that guy auditioned to play fucking Jon Snow. Like that dude is pure evil.
I see him kick around and like must have the worst agent in Hollywood, because I'll see him, he pops up on terrible shit. Terrible. Yes. Like he ended up in Inhumans. Like
yeah, that's right.
Other bad stuff. Like, and I think he's a good actor.
He's an incredible actor, dude. His evil acting is like on par with like some of the best dudes. Like his performance as Ramsay Bolton up until the end is incredible and so psychotic. I love
very
it.
Satisfying death too.
Yes, probably the most satisfying in all of Thrones.
Yeah,
he was in the dirt. I forgot about that. They made him play the guitarist. Almost said Eddie Munster. I forget his name. Mars. I forget. But yeah, dude, he is just such an incredibly well acted character, and just such a satisfying character arc for him through those seasons as well.
When he kills his own stepmom and dogs.
Yep.
Oh my god.
He doesn't even kill them. He lets the dogs eat them to death. Like,
oh my god. Weren't we introduced to him with him just hunting down a girl?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Sport, and he would like turn his dogs on him. Jesus Christ.
And he has like a great vicious face too. Like when he would like do something evil, he had like that
weird. Yeah.
He has that British ass chin. You know what I mean? All right. Next up, I feel like I've gotten my cream of the crop I wanted out of Game of Thrones. I will go to Lord of the Rings for this one. This is where it gets a little bit harder, but I'll pick.
I'm grabbing a water. I'll be right back.
Sure. This is where it gets harder because like there's so many characters in Lord of the Rings I love. None of them come from The Hobbit. Like it's all just from the original trilogy. Although I do think some of the characters in The Hobbit were good, just not fleshed out as well. And one character I really loved from Lord of the Rings is Saruman. So I'll go Saruman. I think Christopher Lee, rest in peace, one of the best actors to ever do it. Also the only actor on Lord of the Rings to have ever met Tolkien and had conversations with him. He loved Christopher Lee loved the Lord of the Rings series, the books and everything. I think he poured a lot into the role of Saruman and he crushed it. He was like perfectly like manipulative and evil and just I love his character progression. Also a very satisfying death as well. Just really, really liked him. And I think Christopher Lee he's a talent we'll surely miss for sure.
Didn't Christopher Lee fight in like World War II or something?
Yeah, he was like in the OSS. He was like a legit spy in World War II.
Yeah. What a guy. Mm-hmm. What a life. Yeah, that's a great pick. I mean,
yeah.
In his tower, like his setting was one of the coolest ones to go to. When he's
tower of trees.
Someone posted that scene the other day when they're tearing up the trees and he's building like his little Uruk-hai manufacturing plant basically. Mm-hmm. And you want to talk about stuff that holds up and it shouldn't, but it's like the perfect blend of CGI and practical. God.
Yeah. What do you call it? The scene where he goes like they're talking about the trees, their roots are strong, and he's like, bring them down or whatever. Like he had such a great voice. And he used it so well in like every movie. Like, yeah, this is true. This is such a crazy story that Alex brings up. He's a fucking Spec Ops desert rat from World War II. Like he was a beast. We can go back to this one for a minute. There's the montage. This is what a lot of like issues in some shows start with, like when they're starting up. Like Lord of the Rings, like those first few episodes, like they're very intriguing. They have a core mystery, but they are all over the place, and it takes a while to set in. I will say, I think it's a good show to like give some time to. All right, you're up. You got back to back 7 and 8.
Okay. I'm gonna do a nice little team up here, just like I did last time, and I'm gonna just take the other two buddies. I'm gonna go Gimli and Legolas. Order doesn't matter. I don't think they'd want to be over each other. They might have to be 7T. I think, yeah, they're too competitive. But yeah, no, they're both just awesome. I think they carried a lot of the fight scenes. Just the very contrasting way they fought was very appealing to me. And they like Legolas was probably the much better fighter, but Gimli would just do his best to stay in the mix and keep up with them. And I mean, when they're counting off their deaths, their kills in Return of the King.
Yep.
Oh, awesome.
That only counts as one.
So much of the cool shit. Like he does so much of when he slides, when he skateboards down the stairs. Just fucking awesome. On the shield. Yeah. They're just awesome. And Gimli, like back to dwarves. I like elves. They're cool to watch, but I could never have a beer with an elf. I could never have a beer with an elf. Dwarves are my people.
There's a funny scene, I forget if it's in Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, where they have like a drinking contest, and the elf, I forget which elf it is. I think it's Legolas. He like crushes them. I think it's an extended edition of maybe Two Towers. Yeah, it is. And Legolas crushes Gimli in a drinking competition because his I guess metabolism works faster since he's immortal, and he's just sitting there chugging them. And he's like, Gimli's literally about to fall over, and Legolas is like, starting to feel something. I don't know what this is. Am I buzzed? And like Gimli's like fall on the ground drunk already. Like it's very funny. He's also much shorter, which I guess plays a factor. Yeah. But yeah, that is an incredible duo to get.
I love that people. So one of the biggest things people freak out over the Rings of Power is that the dwarf women don't have beards.
Yeah.
One throwaway line from Gimli, and I guess it's probably true to the source too, is that the women had beards, but Gimli showing a picture of his wife, and he's like, "Yeah, it's actually pretty hard to tell us apart."
Yeah,
tell the women and men apart.
Yeah, dude, they're both so good, and it's funny too. Like John Rhys Davies is the tallest cast member in Lord of the Rings and played a dwarf. Like,
I didn't know that he's that tall.
Dude, he's like 6'2". Like he's massive, and he's taller than like all those other guys. And he did play a dwarf. And he also, I think, he had an allergic reaction to the latex, so he just dealt with it. He was just like, fuck it, I'll just do it. And he did not love the experience, but he's like he loved the result. But yeah, those are two great characters. So many great kills from both of them, great lines. And that's another one like Merry and Pippin, where it's like they got a great bromance out of it for sure. At least in my opinion. All right. Now I'm up. I will do with my first one, going to go back to Game of Thrones. I feel like I'm getting like every villain, but I'll get Littlefinger. I think Littlefinger, the guy who acted him, Aidan Gillen or something.
Yeah, Aidan Gillen.
Yeah, he crushed that role. I don't love how I kind of like the execution of it. I don't love how his character died. I feel like he could have done more with him. But I think that like he was such a good actor as Littlefinger, and the character of Littlefinger was so like smart and conniving. And I think he was like sort of at his heart, like that character is the soul of Game of Thrones, because like the whole issue is like you don't watch Game of Thrones just to watch fight scenes or action set pieces and shit. Like it's a political drama intrigue, and like he is that. He is all of those core characteristics, right?
Chaos is a ladder could be like literally the tagline for the series. Chaos is a ladder is a hell of a line.
Yeah, and like I think he just represents what made Game of Thrones so interesting. Like he was that intrigue character, and like the build from the rags to riches story, whatever you want to call it, him being mega horny for Catelyn Stark,
and then mega horny for Sansa.
Yeah, and then even hornier for Sansa.
And just not horny at all for his fucking crazy ass wife.
Yeah, for his crazy ass wife, or the Cavill. What was the term in Peacemaker? He said the coterie of villains.
The coterie of villains.
His coterie of whores. Not horny for them at all, including Ross, who was very hot. I'll do Littlefinger first, and then I'll do Jaime Lannister. Jaime Lannister. Yeah, he is another one where I think he's a piece of shit. But in the same way as Cersei, you do root for him. You root for him a lot more than you ever root for Cersei. And like he's very similar to Tyrion in that he has like a much more standard what do you call it? Like mentality. Like he does always want to do the good thing, but he also struggles with the part of him that's also kind of Cersei-ish. Like he's kind of like a blend between Tyrion and Cersei, where like Tyrion will always do what's best for everybody, and like Cersei will only do what's best for her family. And like Jaime's kind of a mix. Like he's a good person, but he also treats his family like way more like higher on his priority list than like anything else, which is understandable. But I think he was phenomenally acted. Really intense moments for him, especially after he loses his hand. I think like he really goes through a huge character transformation. And I think especially when you look at him in season 1, he's like, oh, this is just this incest freak that just killed a kid. Like he had about as much of an uphill battle as any character has ever had to gain audience like love and appreciation. Yeah. And he did it. He did it like pretty quickly too. I think he rocked.
He was great. It was tough to see the way he went out, but
yeah,
no, I loved him. I loved the moments with him and Brienne.
Yeah,
Brienne of Tarth. Yeah, I mean, just a fucking killer character. The Lannisters just ruled. Lannisters were awesome. People hated them, but they were great.
All right, you're back up.
All right, I'm gonna go back to Thrones. This is pick number 9 and 10 for me. Oh, so these 9 and 10, yeah. Okay.
Last 2 picks.
I think. Wow. All right.
It's real hard.
There's some really good Thrones characters in here.
There's a lot still.
Really good ones. I want to take one of each. And there's fuck. This is so hard. All right, I'm gonna go Sir Bronn.
Yeah.
Bronn. The Viper's great, but he just wasn't. I don't think
he made me angry because he fucked up so bad.
Yeah, and he just wasn't around enough. He was a cool character, but he was only there for what, a season? Like that. Bronn was cool. Talk about a guy climbing the ladder, even more so than Jon Snow. He had much more of an uphill battle. He just got by being quick-witted, knowing when to pick his spots. He was all about the coin. He just wanted to get rich, live in a castle, have a wife, respectable. Just wanted the American dream. Yeah, I really love Bronn.
Dude, he rocks. He's like one of the ultimate just simple characters that is just very lovable. Lovable rogue.
He was a big part in Jaime's redemption. I mean, he humbled Jaime quite a bit, very often too. Yeah. So yeah, I love him.
All right, last pick.
And then my 10th pick. I'm saving this one for the end because I didn't think she would go. Éowyn. Love Éowyn. One of my favorite lines from the whole trilogy is, "But I am no man." I love that. Yeah, I mean, she's one of the cooler female characters you'll find in fantasy. And her being human too, like just great. Love her.
That fight versus the Witch King is so sick too. And I love watching the behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings for that, because like they brought out the initial mace that they were going to have him use to Peter Jackson. He's like, gotta bump that up. Gotta make that bigger. They bring it back again. And he's like, nope, gotta make it bigger. Gotta make it bigger. And they bring it out and like they purposely make it comically large so that he'll be like, oh, that's too big. Let's go back. And he's like, no, I love it. And so the actor that had to use it, he was like, dude, this is so heavy. Like, how am I supposed to be using this? And Peter Jackson is like, no, watch this. And he like swings it and like rips his shirt off. It's like, it's so funny. That battle was when he like gets up out of like the writhing fell beast, like with its head cut off, and he like gets up and just like pulls out the sword on one hand and the mace in the other. And you're just like, and her face during that moment is so cool. And then when he like flips it and goes thud and just like crushes the earth, like it's so good. It's tough to get better than that fight scene.
Yeah. Rounding out with Éowyn.
And her relationship with Mary was good because both of them were on a kind of a similar path.
I love that shot when he's just riding, like he looks like a 4-year-old. Sometimes you don't notice how much shorter and smaller the hobbits are.
Very.
Because sometimes they don't establish that shot where they're just next to each other, and then you're like, oh, the hobbits really do just come up like right above the knees. Like,
yeah,
they're really little.
How about instead of a 20-minute breakdown of the She-Hulk, how about we do very quickly? It's okay. It's a fine show.
That's fine. It's bordering towards I really don't want to watch this.
Yeah, it's going towards that direction. I think there's nothing more to say about it right now for me other than I think it's totally fine. It is. It's got some funny, borders on cringe a lot. It's fine. The Megan Thee Stallion scenes, I thought it was hot. I don't know. Not the She-Hulk end of it, but purposely.
I think there's a lot. I'll say this. I think there's a lot of CBS comedies that are much funnier than this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're necessarily wrong about that. And the CGI in this episode, the last one particularly was it's real bad. Real bad. All right, my last pick, the last pick of this draft. This is where it gets hard, and there's a lot on this list. And I'll tell you who I'm picking through since I have the last one. Davos Seaworthy.
That was who when I was going between Braun, and that was what I was having a tough time. I was like, Braun or Davos?
Yeah, Davos is a tough one. Tormund was very cool in the later seasons.
Tormund was such a in a Game of Thrones way, he was probably the least dynamic character.
He
never changed.
Exactly. Very, very standard path. He's like, all he wants is an Amazonian wife and
killing people.
And killing people. And he's just like, he's like so primal. He's like the perfect wildling guy. You know what I mean?
I like the big one.
Yeah, exactly. He's just, but Tormund is up there for me. Theoden, I love in Lord of the Rings, like his arc. What's that?
Which one was he? I gotta remember this.
Theoden's the king of Rohan. He has that big speech at before the Battle of Pelennor Fields where he's like, some of you are gonna die, but it is not this day. And then he just like the whole death, like running down the line with a spear, like hitting all the spears with his sword. Great scene. A really good character turn for him. And like even one of my favorite scenes in all of Lord of the Rings was Return of the King when they light all the beacons. Yes. And Aragorn comes running in and he's like, Gondor calls for aid. And he just like, Theoden stares him right in the eyes and goes, and Rohan will answer. Like, boom, the soundtrack hits. Like, oh, I get goosebumps even thinking about it, dude. It is such a good scene. But he's up there. The actual character of Sauron, but like it's tough to be. Yeah. I like him as a concept.
Yeah, it's like a great concept because I do appreciate that. I'd say that's the biggest difference between Thrones and Lord of the Rings. Where Lord of the Rings, it's so cut and dry between good and evil. Evil is such a very specific concept, and it's not a particular person. It's more the temptation of evil. Whereas Thrones, you get so much more of the gray. Yeah, almost all the characters are in the gray.
Like even all the ones we described right now, like all the bad characters that I picked and you picked from Game of Thrones, like they're all redeemable. Except for Ramsay like Bolton, they're like redeemable.
Yeah.
I think between this grouping, like Treebeard would probably be up there too. He rocked.
I really thought about picking him too.
Yeah.
I love the Ents.
They were great. They were so just simple, slow creatures. But when they got their asses mad, they went and crushed Isengard all by themselves. And that one, I might have even picked that one Ent that dips himself into the water when he's on fire because that guy rocked as well. But between this grouping, I think I'd have to go with Davos Seaworth. Davos, between him and Tormund, would be my final little grouping here. But I think Davos is a very fascinating character and has a very fascinating arc because he goes through like all these different alliances or people he's aligned to or sworn to. He's always very straightforward, always very much on like the good side of things. He knows what's right and wrong. And I think he's a very like lovable character because like he's the one more than almost any of these characters, any of these other characters. He's like loyal and has a sense of morality to a fault. Like he got in prison and was about to get executed because he defied his king that he was working for. He got like disinherited, all this shit. And he was I just loved him. I really liked him. And I love that actor too. I think he had great delivery of his lines.
He's like the dad. He's the good dad. And he's everybody's good dad. Like he's just got a good head on his shoulder. He's like, listen, I've been around the block. I know what's best. Like just trust me here. Just trust
me.
I mean,
him learning how to read too is very funny.
Oh yeah, that's heartbreaking with Stannis' daughter,
Shireen. Yeah, that scene was really tough.
Yeah, see, I've been like thinking back on Thrones. I might start a rewatch of it. I'm watching a very popular show right now. I'm not gonna say what it is. Getting through it for the first time. I'll talk about it afterwards because I don't want people talking to me about it. Yeah, no, I might have to do a rewatch of Thrones because like there's so many moments I've just like keep remembering and I'm like, God damn, Thrones really they just threw some crazy shit our way.
Yep.
Like, crazy stuff.
So here's our teams as of right now. I got Tyrion, Merry / Pippen, Gollum, Daenerys, Cersei, Ramsay, Saruman, Littlefinger, Jaime Lannister, and Davos. You have Aragorn, Gandalf, Samwise, Jon Snow, the Hound, Arya Stark, Gimli, Legolas, Bronn, and Eowyn. I think between our two teams, you would definitely get more votes when we throw this up for a debate, because I think you have more of the marquee characters than me for sure.
Yeah.
Like you have like a lot more of like the face guys, which is like you have like the John Cena's and the Rocks, which is smart. You have the right guys. I think.
Mention? You want to do some honorable mentions?
Yeah.
Someone I really wanted to pick, but I didn't, is Éomer.
Éomer rocked.
Yeah, Éomer was cool as fuck.
Carl Urban.
Yeah, Carl Urban. I mean, it's just Carl Urban, which is it's very funny when you see him pop up and you're like, hey, it's Carl Urban. Galadriel probably could have gone. She's not
enough screen time.
Not in it enough, but when she is, she really does deliver.
What's his name? Éomer has that one line that's really good in his introduction to the Fellowship, where he's talking to Gimli, and he's like, "I would strike your head from your shoulders, dwarf, if only it stood a little further from the ground." Like, so many great lines, and just another dude who's like, he's an enforcer. You want that guy on your team.
Now I'm looking at it in that extended scene you're talking about, the drinking contest. It says that he's the one who instigated it.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Faramir.
He's a goon. He's a big time goon, which is cool.
Boromir. I know
for sure. Yeah.
He's a piece of shit, but he's a great character. I mean, he really is. He falls to the temptation of evil. You see how that happens. It's a really good table setter of like what we're working with, what we're dealing with, the evil we're dealing with.
And you see how the desperation of like it feeds into his temptation, right? Like he falls into it because he wants to protect Gondor so bad. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think that plays a huge part in making him such a good character.
And then some Thrones characters that didn't go. Ned Stark. I didn't really love Ned Stark.
Not enough time, half a season, like.
Yeah, and like you kind of, I don't want to say it was predictable when it happened, because I was probably shocked the first time around, if I remember right.
Yeah.
But like looking back, you're like, oh, of course this guy's gonna die. He's just way too nice. Like he was just too nice. The Direwolves, Ghost. Ghost, and what was Arya's? Nymeria?
Nymeria, Lady, Ghost, Shaggy Dog. What was Rob's? God damn it.
R.I.P. to Rob.
It's the one they cut off his head and wear it and put it on, sew it onto his body.
Yeah.
Fuck. Gray something? Yeah. Grey Wind?
I might feel
it. Yeah, I think. I'm not sure. Someone will comment it in a second, I'm sure. But yeah, the dire roasted rock. And Ned had a really cool line. I remember one of the coolest of Game of Thrones when Jaime confronts him and he's like, "Why don't you ever show up to the tourneys, Ned Stark?" And he's like, "Because when I fight a man, I don't want him to know what I can do." You know what I mean? Like, it's a great line.
What we missed? All-time Thrones character. Not a lot of screen time, but when he was there, he delivered. Podrick.
Big Dick King.
Big Dick King. One of the funniest moments in the whole series when they gave him the money back.
Yeah, the horse gave him the money back.
Oh my god. Yeah, love him.
And then that immediately instigates like Bronn and Tyrion's like curiosity, and like they're both like, "We gotta figure this out. Tell us everything." And like they go and like ask the whores.
A great running bit.
Yeah.
Hot Pie also great.
Limited, but yes. So I liked a lot of the characters on the wall, like in short doses. Like Alistair Thorne, I thought was a great bad guy. Like, I think to a lesser extent, Gren and Pip, like in between on them.
I'll tell you who's not making this fucking graphic. Useless character. Hated him.
Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not like Sam either.
Never liked him.
Me neither.
Whimpering, whining. Oh, couldn't stand. I wanted him to like also like get good at something, but he kind of like his big thing was like he was gonna figure out the secret, and he didn't, did he? Like did he ever really figure anything out reading those books?
I think he figured out Obsidian was important, but like I think as far as screen time to total contribution to the show goes, like he was bottom. He was like right there at the bottom. He did very little to advance the story.
Good lord. I liked Sansa. I did like her character development. But she was so annoying early on that I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
God, Thrones. I'm just like, Thrones probably has the deeper bench, honestly, in terms of characters. There's a lot of people got their moments. Melisandre,
yeah, great death scene for her.
Oberyn, we kind of touched on him earlier. Elena, Tyrell. I was never a fan of Elena that much because she was so conniving, and people treated her like she was like a good person. I was like, no, no. Cured Jorah, there's another character, Jorah. He was so horny. I almost was like,
he was the OG simp. Like
he's the Leonardo DiCaprio of. He's just like the younger women. So hot too, but he was hot.
Yeah, I did like his fight scenes, like his especially when they move on and like she's the full queen and like he keeps going into the gladiator fights and stuff like that was kind of cool. This was one of the ultimate shocking scenes when Melisandre got onto the bed and just turned into an old ass lady with
one of the hottest scenes.
The saggiest things you've ever seen. Yeah. We got a whole bunch.
Yeah. That was fun.
That was a fun one. It just
makes me want to rewatch this stuff. And
I know, me too. Like the only thing I can think of now is watching some of those iconic scenes.
This is a tough one to rewatch too, because it's so much time on both of them. Like
exactly,
Lord of the Rings is more manageable because you can knock that out in a weekend. Like Thrones is daunting. That's that's 70, 80 hours worth of television.
Yeah. I think I'm probably gonna watch Return to the King tonight. Like all those scenes you mentioned, like I need to see that one scene, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? I need to watch that ASAP. Okay, but that's episode 9 of The Long Take. We'll be back next week with a brand spanking new topic. Maybe throw some other people in here as well. But thanks for joining in. Maybe we'll use these as like our de facto Lord of the Rings recap episodes. You know what I mean? Like more instant reaction compared to.
Yeah, we'll figure out how invested Jeff Chris isn't a Lord of the Rings guy either. He's not big on fantasy, so I wouldn't guess he's getting from this. So I'll see how into this Jeff is, and then we'll kind of make a decision.
I figure for the sake of going into the more in-depth conversations, this could be our more de facto one, and then we'll obviously talk about it on the pod regardless.
If on the pod, I'd much rather, if we're gonna pick 2 shows to recap out of the 3 that are dropping, I would much rather do this and House of the Dragon. Because She-Hulk is becoming, I don't know how much we need to talk about it.
It's devolving to no longer needing to speak about it. You're right. Yeah. All right. But yeah, we'll be back next Friday. But thank you all for joining. Remember to subscribe and do all the fun stuff that we always ask you to do. We actually have a brand new Lord of the Rings shirt that just dropped in the store. Let me see if I can pull that up for you, a little picture of it. They've been asking us for designs. It's been very, very difficult because basically there's a lot of C&D issues and all that shit, which I'm sure you guys are all aware of if you do anything with Barstool before or worked with anything with Barstool before, ordered anything from Barstool before. But let's see, I'll pull up our little
the shirt is sick.
Yeah, this took me a while to get done even slightly correctly. Just looks like meat's back on the menu, boys. One of the greatest quotes from Lord of the Rings, in my opinion, implies that Uruk-hai have seen menus before, which makes
that's what I was about to say. Yeah,
makes less than no sense. I just got straight up the quote there: "Hand of Isengard, the white hand of Isengard," right on the back. I don't know. I just like it. If you like it too, you can feel free to buy it. We'll be tweeting out the link to that shortly, and you can find it there. But until then, we will see you guys next week.